Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 5 of the Rink Moose Hockey Podcast, an episodic podcast where two, sometimes three, sometimes four, sometimes five good friends gather around a table and discuss all things NHL and their implications in the fantasy hockey universe. I am one of your hosts, as always, Nick Costu, along with finally making his return to the Rink Moose show after 2 years, everyone's favorite Italian meatball, Joe from the Bridge, Joseph Camilleri, making his long-awaited triumphant return. Joe, how are you doing on this Tuesday evening? Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening, but fantastic. There's playoff hockey on tonight, and there's a team called the Leafs. They're in the second round of the playoffs, so doing a lot better than I have been this time of year, in the previous, 7 fucking years, so doing a lot better.
Yeah, and we'll get right into that very shortly. And joining us as well, making his return from last week, Mr. Gabagool himself from the Bridge, or is it Vaughn? Where are you?
I'm in the Bridge now, but it's the same.
He's in the Bridge now.
Think about it.
It's
all the same.
For those who recognize that voice, John Ramo Rossi is back, and the three of us are here to break down round one of the playoffs. So we're going to start with what Joe was alluding to. Usually, this post-round one episode is a post-mortem. We're talking about who's getting fired, who's getting shipped out of town, who's going back to Siberia. That's the talk usually this time of year. But not this year, Joe, because something different happened this year. Am I right, my friend?
Yes, it did. The Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning in 6 games this year to advance to the second round for the first time in 19 years. And it's just an incredible feeling. And like we were talking about earlier, when I saw that goal go in, I almost blacked out. I couldn't believe it was real. I was so scared that there was going to be well, hang on a second here, folks. We got an offside. We got a kicking motion, or I don't know, something that the NHL referees would make up to prolong the overtime, and then back the other way, Braden Point, scores and ends it. But it didn't happen that way. John Tavares scored probably the biggest goal for this franchise in about 20 years, almost about 20 years. And what can you say? Full credit to the Leafs. This is a series that, unlike the previous 3 or 2 series, that the Leafs were not the better team. They were completely outplayed by Tampa in most of the series. However, as I'm learning from watching a lot more playoff hockey, that the Leafs are in and that I actually care, they don't ask, how, they just ask how many wins, right? And, all this stuff over the course of the season that we always talk about, like expected goals, Corsi, all that stuff that, generally shapes a pitcher over 82 games, that stuff doesn't really mean anything in the playoffs. It's just, who wants it more, pretty much. And, the Leafs core wanted it more. And we always said the only way for this team, you can get as many depth players as you want. And they're important pieces, no doubt. And, we'll get to that in a minute about the O'Reillys and the Acharis. But it's about the core stepping up. That's what it was. For this team to take the next step, the core had to step up. And frankly, Toronto's players, Toronto Stars, were better than Tampa's players. Matthews scored 5 goals in that series. Mitch Marner had a casual 11 points in 7 games. William Nylander chipped in with 7 points. John Tavares, a little quiet, but he scored a hat trick in Game 2 and then scored, again, one of the most important goals in Leafs franchise, for the last 20 years, and probably saved about 5 or 6 jobs when that puck crossed the line. So, all in all, and you could tell the team, and again, full credit to Kyle Dubas as well. The team, they replaced guys like Ekwal and Mikheyev and duds like Jack Campbell, who they're just not winners, with guys like O'Reilly and Acciari that can play more of that playoff style grittiness. And we haven't even got to Matthew Knies, who's 20 years old, just scored a ridiculous goal last night, and is now playing on the first line of the Toronto Maple Leafs after playing against the Quinnipiac Bobcats a couple of weeks ago in that same arena.
The Quinnipiac
Bobcats a couple of weeks ago. What a story, right? So yeah, full credit to the Leafs, and we're all Leaf fans on this panel, except for the absentee Kyle Nice. But just pure happiness, and I know they're down 1-0 right now, but not too worried. It's the second round, and I'm just excited to see some more playoff hockey. Full credit to the Leafs management and the team.
Yeah, and before we get to John Ramos' take, just to get it out of the way, Kyle, he basically made it known he's taking a leave of absence for the next week or so. His head's buried in the sand somewhere in the Caribbean, and he's basically hibernating until the draft
He,
lottery next Monday.
he went golfing with Lafreniere.
Yeah, he went golfing. He's on the 19th hole right now with Lafreniere getting tossed, and
Your guys of the Winnipeg Jets too, Mark Scheifele, they're all
yeah. All of Kyle's buddies,
air quotes.
Yeah. So yeah, he's not here today. Did not want to show his face. But John Ramo, I want to know your take. That goal goes in. That John Tavares goal. What is your immediate reaction? What are your thoughts? What's racing through your brain in that moment?
You know what? It was a crazy moment because it was something that you almost knew that needed to happen given everything this team's been through, really since they drafted Austin Matthews. Actually, since before then, since they drafted William Nylander, when this whole new era of Toronto hockey really began, they needed this win, and it needed to be in Game 6. I mean, Nick, we spoke at work earlier, and I said it needed to be Game 5. I came on, the week, when we did our sort of season, our round one previews, and I made it clear that, and I said Leafs in 5, and everyone kind of like, a little bit of a hot take, but
yeah,
I was just at a point where I'd watched in previous years, and when you look back at everything that this team went through, you think you faced what? Vasilevsky 2 times in the playoffs. You faced Tuukka Rask. You faced Braden Holtby. The Leafs have never caught a break in the first round. Everybody wants to complain about the 7 years in a row knockout, but if you look at how far those 7 teams went, you had Washington win the Stanley Cup. You had Tampa Bay win the Stanley Cup twice. You had Boston make it to the finals. Like, the Leafs were facing teams that were not just in the playoffs, but teams that were expected to win the Stanley Cup just about every year that the Leafs were in it. So they've always come up against it. And for once this year, I said, you know what? Fuck it. Hopefully the Leafs aren't a team that's going to not catch a break, and Vasilevsky's going to win it again, and we're going to be here singing the same old song and dance. What needs to change? Who needs to go? Is it the mentality? Is it the culture? What needs to change? When that second goal went in, I was just staring at the TV, and I was like, yeah, finally. Like, it was like I couldn't even celebrate because I know the job's not finished with the win, but I know that it takes a lot of pressure off the players and mentally the monkeys off their back. It allows them to go out and play their game, which I don't want to get into last night's game too much because I was fucking pissed after that game because it was another.
We'll get into it.
But just going back to that Game 6 was like finally, like a moment where they had done everything they hadn't done before. They came back from a 3-goal deficit and won, which is always the opposite. I never have to hear 3-1 again from when they lost to Boston.
It was 4-1,
exactly.
yeah.
Like it's gone. Like it was 4-1, the Leafs turned it around. Then Boston blows it through, and it's like, holy shit, the hockey gods are real, and the Leafs maybe aren't cursed, as I was saying earlier. But it was just, when it went in, it was this jubilation, it was this elation of saying, like, it's done. Like, they broke that curse. But as a fan now, we know this team's more than capable of winning one round. And when you look now at who's left, your nerves almost increase now because you're like, this isn't just a one-round season. It's not like you're facing Boston where if you lose, people will be like, that might be the best team in NHL history they've just come across, and they didn't win. It's expected. They're not supposed to. But now you look at it and think they're a good matchup against Florida the way they play, and you got to think the road to the final is one that's more than capable of being won by this Leaf team. So there's a new set of nerves. But when that goal went in, it was honestly just, it was like, it's just this wave that came over me where I was like, all right, that's done. I never have to talk about it again. Let's actually just immediately look ahead. That's all I was thinking about. I'm like, who's next? Because I'm like, the round's done now. The monkey's off the back. The curse is broken. And for once, the Leafs weren't the better team. Because I looked back at last year and said, if you looked at the underlying numbers, the Corsi, the stats, the GX numbers, it all favored the Leafs. They were supposed to win against Tampa last year. But it just didn't happen because they got Vasilevsky in Game 7. It happens, right? Yeah. That's completely normal and could happen to any team. But for once, it's like...
Yeah, it didn't happen to us.
They did the opposite this year. They played like dog shit, but they actually cared. And when push comes to shove, they made the right plays. They won the key faceoffs. They got the fortunate wrist shot from the blue line that beats everybody, right? They got the deflections in front that didn't hit the bar or go here. Like, everything bounced their way, and it's like, for 7 years of bullshit, it was about time. Because in those 7 years, the Leafs have been as good as the opposition or sometimes a little bit better. They've never played a series where they're like, yeah, they got fucking dominated and they lost, right? Even against Montreal, they got Carey Price. Like, yes, they weren't great, but they were still better, but they got goalie. And for once, it's like, holy shit, Vasilevsky didn't Vasilevsky, right? Like, the Leafs
Yeah.
got the bounces, the power, like, everything worked out, and it's like, finally. So that's really how I felt at the end. And then now it's just, you want more because you know one's not enough. And if you don't beat Florida, all the talk is going to be a team they should have beat. They didn't do it again.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's one of the things too, where it's like, you know, the mental fortitude and of the core has been questioned so much for like 7 years. Where it's like, oh, are they just prima donnas and can't win? But it's like, you watch playoff hockey. It's like the puck can go off someone's ass and go in the net, and your series is over. Like, it's really just like breaking your way. And yeah, there is an element to, you know, step it up and things like that. But like you said, like, it's like that goal from John Tavares, a fantastic play from John, by the way, just great effort along the boards, heart, grit, determination. But it was a fucking shot from the left circle that bounced off of Darren Radish's skate that went in the net. Like, it's just like, that could have easily happened the other way, and we could have been in a Game 7 and another 50-50 game, and they could have lost. And all they would be talking about, well, the core can't get it done when it counts. But I think it has less to do with character and more of just like, hey, after 20 years, we got some bounces our way. And like, I don't want to hear about the referee missed the high sticking call on TJ Brody. Fuck that shit. In Game 7 last year, John Tavares, a goal was taken off the board for no reason other than Justin Hall was literally, his gravity propelled him into someone. You know? And to your point, Turner, well, that's the scariest part, where it's like, they can actually win the cup. This isn't like 2020 Canadians where it's like, yeah, like they won a couple of rounds, they have a hot goalie, but this team isn't going to win a cup. They're not good enough. Their number one center is Nick, they're going to win a cup. The Leafs can act like, that's the most terrifying part, where it's like, you know, you can beat Florida, you can probably beat Carolina or New Jersey, and then anyone from the West, it's a 50-50 shot. Like, I mean, Edmonton would be 50-50. I think they're a better team than Dallas. I think they're a better team than Vegas. I think they're a better team than the Kraken. Yeah. So that's the scary part, where it's like, we've never seen this before. The core is good. They have the talent, and holy shit, like, we might have something here, right? So that's the scary part.
Yeah, and it's like, it's difficult to explain, but like, it's one of those things where, you know, Nick, and like we talked about this last time, where, you know, I made the comment where I said the Stanley Cup's the most difficult championship out of any pro sport to win, because it's the biggest slog, it's the biggest grind. It's the only sport where the game changes. You know, in the NBA, your superstars are going to be your superstars. The better team's going to win 85% of the time. But in hockey, it's like, I mean, did you watch the Boston series? Like, go show me the last time something like that happens in the NBA, where a team with drastically less talent or overall compete is not on the same level. So for us to break through was huge. And it's a monkey off the back for everybody. I mean, if you watch Austin Matthews when that goal goes in on the bench, it's like, he just looks up and is almost like saying, fuck me, finally. Like, something goes our way. Like, you remember how Tampa won Game 6 last year? Same shit, fucking hits a skate in front and slides through Campbell. And it's almost poetic that the exact same way the Leafs won was not a, you know, some Austin Matthews rip down the wing, or you know, Mitch Marner with a gross pass. It was just a fucking John Tavares play below the red line where he excels, a board battle that he wins, comes out and just get the fucking puck on net and see if it hits something. And man, I want Morgan Rielly to play with a black eye for the rest of his life, because this is the best Morgan Rielly. I mean, he's playing like a number one defenseman.
I mean, Morgan Rielly, like, that guy was like, I'm like, he just was like mission, found something.
He was on a mission.
It was vintage. It was vintage Morgan Rielly.
Even Morgan, like, Luke Shen is probably right now the Leafs' second best playoff.
I know.
And I would have thought, like, somebody tweeted, it was a hilarious tweet where they were like, because they showed the round 2 graphic with. Could you imagine if someone back in October said, hey, by the way, this is going to be the round 2 graphic for Game 1 against the Florida Panthers with Luke Schen's mug staring back at you? You would think it was just a complete joke. And the guy's been absolutely stellar. I sure as hell don't miss Rasmus Sandin. I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, and you know what, I think a guy like, listen, because when you look at the stats, there was one guy that really, really had a rough series, like, and he got cooked for it, and he deserved it. But Justin Hall was horrific, and like, here's the thing, I never know what to make of him, because when he's on his game, he looks like a Norris Trophy defenseman. Once every 4 games, He'll shut down McDavid. He'll make these great defensive plays.
Yeah.
And then you look at the series here, and it's like Tampa Bay targeted him 11 or 12 goals against he's on the ice for. Like, it's like if you remove Justin Hall from the situation, Tampa would have maybe scored, 5 goals the entirety of the series. Like, they only scored when Hall was on the ice. And it's like, how did that not change earlier? Like, maybe should have been Scratcher. Again, I'm not a coach, and I don't claim to be one, but clearly he did not pass the eye test, and clearly he did not do enough for me to warrant the amount of games that he played, because I could have easily seen a guy like Timothy Liljegren who had a really solid year, a breakout year in some ways for a young defenseman. But fuck me, surely he would have done a better job than what Justin Hall did on the ice, because it was horrific. And it really makes me think, like, wow, like if it was anybody but Hall, maybe the Leafs sweep Tampa, because realistically, the only goals they scored was when he was
when Hall was on the ice. Yeah. There was like 14 goals that scored when Hall was on the ice, and like I understand Keith's logic where he's like, well, I need him for the penalty kill, but then you think about it, like, so what? They get 4 power play opportunities a game versus like they're allowing like 10, 11 goals on the ice. Like he's, and also one of the big problems with the Leafs in that series from a play perspective, at least what I thought, was that they had an inability to break sort of the neutral zone trap that Tampa had.
They couldn't.
And if you bring in a guy like Justin Hall who can't really move the puck,
can't skate, nothing.
So Timothy Liljegren, who is a puck-moving, mobile defenseman, played well. And, like, even, I do have a problem sometimes with Keith's sort of galaxy brain and stuff, but hit in Game 6 for going 11-7. I didn't agree with it. I'm like, fuck, just roll 4 lines. Why are you doing this? But I'm like, you know what? It worked. It gave the big boys more time to play, and they, if one of those guys are having a bad night, like Hall, you put or Liljegren, you have Gustafsson there, and full credit to the Leafs. And like, did anyone see how far Sheldon Keefe leaped in the air when they scored like that? And I don't want to hear also anything.
It felt
about
like they won the cup. Like it literally felt like they won the cup. Right?
Yeah, and I don't want to hear anything about the core 4 not being into the game or being passionate. When Matthews jumped up and celebrated, like, this guy, he wants to win. He clearly wants to win, and he's not going to Arizona or LA. Like, this is his team, and he's gonna propel them forward.
Like, and like he knew that he needed that. Like, from his perspective. He needed that for his legacy, because you're going on 25 years old. You're in the prime of your career.
Yeah.
You have great. An MVP, great. A Rocket Richard, great. But nobody gives a shit about the individual accolades, right? At the end of the day, no one cares about that. You want to be a guy that has that ring on your finger that says you won the Stanley Cup, because that's what matters. And now you look at it and think, this is a prime opportunity. And it almost makes me more nervous now being in the second round. Yeah. Because if it was Boston, again, you're almost playing with house money. But now you look at the Florida Panthers and think, like, this is a team that takes a bunch of penalties. They don't have a goaltender that should be great. And they are horrific defensively, as they've all been during the season. And now all of a sudden in my head, all the thoughts that creep in is,
the curse.
Bobrovsky's going to turn into 2017 playoff Bobrovsky again. He's going to find his groove again. All of a sudden, Florida's defense is going to tighten up. And the big boys that did nothing in round 1 are all of a sudden going to come out in the lead. And listen, losing game 1, it's not ideal, right? You're at home. You're coming off a bounce, a big win. I expected big energy and a big game. My prediction will still always be Leafs in 5 for this series, and I think they could realistically win 4 in a row, and I'm going to stick by it because they have the team that can. But I still haven't seen a complete 60 minutes from these guys, and they have no choice but to respond tomorrow in a big way. Equal up the series, go to Tampa, where I'm sure or Florida rather, where there'll be a whole bunch of Leaf fans. And just win hockey games, man. Enough of the bullshit, the drama, the bounces. Just go out, play Leafs hockey, and win a game. That's simple.
And that's the thing where it's like, you look at and the scary part is they haven't even played their best hockey.
No.
Like, they have not played a full, other than Game 2 of Round 1 where they smoked Tampa. Yeah. But you knew that was coming because they were, I figured after they got slapped in Game 1. And they came out flat, and we were all yelling and screaming, and everyone's group chat was like, really, after 82 games, waiting for this? This is how you play?
Exactly. You knew this game was happening, and you fucking lay an egg like that? Horrific.
Yeah, that was brutal, but you look at this where it's like, okay, like, like they didn't play their best 60 minutes, but, they still can find that, and like, Nick, like, from your perspective, you're a goalies guy. Like, you are a goalie. You and I both know, we were talking about this before the show, Sergei Bobrovsky does 2 things. Either he puts up a 960, or he lets in 8 goals. There's no in between. Last night you got the former. But, from your perspective, do you think Bobrovsky can keep this up? I don't. I mean, the Leafs probably could have scored 3 times in the 30 seconds they had the puck.
I have no faith in that man. And I look back at 2 years ago when they played the Tampa Bay Lightning and they got swept. And he was awful in that series. And I saw a man that series where I was like, they cannot possibly trust this guy in a playoff setting. And yet he did the impossible against Boston. He actually stepped in and played admirably. And so I almost want, but John Raymond's a goalie too, Joe, and he'll agree with me. When you have gusto, when you have confidence as a goaltender, it can go a very long way. And this guy catches me right now as a guy who's very, very confident. Yep. So I know we don't have faith in him, like his track record. We have no reason to believe in this man. I'm totally with you, Joe. But confidence from the goaltending position can go a very long way. And I don't think there's a more confident goaltender, other than maybe Philip Grubauer right now, than Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah, but another thing is, I think the problem with last night's game was don't play run and gun. It'll be 50-50. If you get back to how the defense you played against Tampa Bay, where you're playing a little bit of tighter defense, Florida, outside of the Tkachuk line, they really don't scare me. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really have any problems with anyone else other than that Tkachuk, Bennett, and I think it's with Barkov's on that line. And
Verhaeghe. That guy's he's a sneaky good player. Watch out for that Verhaeghe.
He is.
And that Montour, that guy might have his name on the North Trophy next year in a couple of years. Yeah. So don't underestimate this Florida team.
Oh, I'm not underestimating them at all, but I think and the Leafs shouldn't underestimate them because they are a good team and they beat the best team in NHL history. Having said that, the Leafs are a better team. Like through and through. They're a better team. And the Leafs should win this series. This is why I'm saying that if the Leafs lose, we deserve to pile on them because you should win this series.
But this is the problem, right? Like, this is why it's more nerve-wracking than round one, because round one was like, we all expected failure. So when they won, it was like, oh, wow, this is great.
The bar was so low that we just didn't care. We're like, okay, if you win, go for it.
Go from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, and you're really telling yourself, like, and this is why I almost wanted Boston to win, because it was such a slog and a grindy series. They lost the swagger. Yes, they won, but they didn't win the way they knew they should have won. When Florida won, you just came back from a 3-1 series deficit, Boston, and you have swagger. Your goalie's playing great. The forwards are starting to score goals again. Why the fuck would the Leafs want to play a team that's just, yes, on paper the matchup's obviously in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of overall talent from top to bottom on the roster. However, you got to look at this as a form thing. And on form, the Florida Panthers played better in the first round than the Maple Leafs did, and it showed again last night where the Panthers carried that on. And we've seen this before when the LA Kings did it in 2011 when they went out there and went from the 8th seed and went all the way and won the cup because their goalie went on a run and the team played great. Florida's starting to give me those vibes again, and as a Leaf fan, I hate it because they didn't play great in the first round and it carried over yesterday. But I thought when they brought it to 2-2, I'm like, man, if that doesn't jack up the crowd and energize the bench and say, let's go and let's push.
It was certainly energized. They just made a really stupid mistake immediately after.
The one pinch and just like that. But in typical Toronto fashion, it's the one mistake after a goal, and it's the lead, and that's it. Right? And you know that's going to happen to you. Right?
They avoided the quote-unquote big mistake against Tampa Bay. Right. There was in Game 5 where Kerfoot put the puck over the glass, although they thankfully killed that penalty. They avoided like that Galchenyuk, Dermott, spin around.
Like just all this shit creeps back into your head. But that's why it's like you lose Game 1 and you're like, now Florida's got the card. Like if the Leafs went out there and I'm not saying stomped them, but if the Leafs went out there and did the opposite and won 4-2, held possession of the puck, did well, you'd plant that seed of doubt into Florida that, hey, this is not going to be Boston again. That's a little bit frail and started to wobble because they have that President's Trophy curse that's always out there with these teams. And yet they go out there and they do exactly the opposite what you want as a Leaf fan. Because now if you're Florida, it's house money. Now you have home ice advantage. Who gives a shit if they lose tomorrow? Now you go back to Florida 1-1. You win your 2.
Is it home ice advantage in Florida?
Yeah. Doesn't mean dick if they're all Leaf fans and the Leafs just pulled off 3 road wins in Tampa.
And that's a fair point. But I'm saying from that pragmatic perspective is to say if you're the Leafs,
I agree.
The Leafs are what, like 1-3 on home ice in these playoffs? Like it's horrible.
Yeah, which is not good.
Actually, sorry, no, I think they're 1-4 actually because they lost. No, they're 1-3.
Yeah, they lost game 1, game 5, and they lost game 1 now.
It's
So
like
we won
1-3 at home. The Leafs were like the fourth best team in the NHL on home, like similar to Boston and Tampa. Like this is not like the road teams are. I don't know, something like 32-18 in these play. Like it's ridiculous. So for the Leafs, it's like you got to swing that because the next round you're not going to have home ice advantage no matter who you play, right? If you get there. But now you have Florida who's playing with confidence, and this is why I say 5. But I'm telling you, man, I'm deep down. I'm shitting bricks, man. Like I'm shitting bricks because if they don't win tomorrow, at 2-0 down,
it's like you're in a tough spot. Yeah, if you don't win tomorrow, you're in a tough spot.
Against Florida, everyone's going to say, "Well, how does this Leaf team get better than this year?" They probably don't, given the difficulties surrounding the cap and the fact that players are going to want to get paid more money than what they are now. It's like this is the best team you have. You have no choice but to win, and I do think they will win tomorrow. I think they'll bounce back, but I still haven't seen them play with that freedom. I haven't seen them play Maple Leaf hockey yet. They do it for spurts and they dominate, and then they don't do it, and then they get cooked, right? They get a goal against, or like a goal slides in. But other than that, I just want to make one last point when it comes to Leaf stuff. But I mean, I got to give Samsonov credit. He stepped up, and for years, Nick, and again, we talked about this extensively with Kyle last week, where it was like we made it very clear when have the Leafs had, and I'm not talking about a .950 save percentage. I'm talking about you make the one save in the one moment that either saves the game or gives your team momentum or keeps your team in it. Like when Jack Campbell came in against the LA Kings. He's been shit all season, but the one time he needed to make the saves, he did, and the team wins, and they go on from there to win the series. For the Leafs, Samsonov made the big saves in overtime. His save percentage wasn't stellar, sub 900, but he made the saves that he needed to make in the big moments that allowed the Leafs to win, and I got to give him credit.
Don't care about his numbers. All I care about is that in Game 6, Game 4, Game 3, the big moments, he made the save. Whereas Freddie and Jack, those fucking losers, every time in the playoffs would give up a back-breaking goal, either to make it down 2-1, it becomes 3-1. If it's in overtime, it slides under the pad. Like I just flashbacks to the Columbus series in Game 1 where Cam Atkinson comes over the blue line, they're playing a great game, rips a shot from just over the blue line. That's just doesn't happen with Samsonov. And I still believe, and we were talking about this, me and my friends talking about this, that Matt Murray is going to have some role to play in this run should they go on it. I have a feeling that he's going to play a crucial game for the Maple Leafs at some point. That's just my hot take. I think he will. But yeah, no, Samsonov deserves full credit. I don't care about. I'm looking at his numbers. I don't care if he's sub 900. All I know is that the guy makes huge saves. Even yesterday in the first period, that game could have been 3-0 Florida in the second period.
Again, just another egg in the first game. Brutal.
When they didn't score on those first 2 power play attempts, I'm
That's it. Yeah, they're done.
This is a Tuesday night in Florida type game. Florida's gonna come back and some plug is gonna score a goal, and lo and behold, it was Nick Cousins, and they're gonna be on the back heel. So keep Toronto in this series, especially, is just capitalize on your power plays because Florida is a terrible, terrible defensive team. They're awful on the penalty kill, and it's not like the power plays looked bad. They should have scored. They just couldn't put it in. They was I can't remember how many pucks I've seen trickle through the crease without going in. And Bobrovsky's flopping around over there, and he smothers the puck. I'm it's right.
Leafs
so
last night, man. That's it. It was literally that simple. The Leafs lead.
I believe the term now is brewed. I believe it's now brewed.
Yeah. But that's what's frustrating, man, is because it's a team you're expected to win. So now the expectations change because it has to be a win, and it's as a Leaf fan, you want to see a Game 1 win. You want to see the confidence, play with a series lead, force the Panthers to come out and play your style of game. Don't play down to the opponent. What did they do yesterday? They fucking did what the Leafs do best all season long. They played down to an opponent, and they fucking got bit in the ass, right?
I think, you know what, honestly, man, as counterintuitive as this sounds, I think this Leaf team needs to, be down in the series before they finally realize, oh, fuck, we actually have to wait. I think it's sad as it is to say because it shouldn't be this way, but they're the type of team that needs to get kicked in the ass and then be like, oh, well, holy fuck, now we have to win this game.
Which is sad. It shouldn't get to that point. And that's what terrifies me about this team is that I want to say, I was telling all these people, friends at work and whatnot, now they're going to play well because the demons have been exercised, as Paul McLean once said. Now the nerves are out. Now you can take a breath and play freewheel hockey, play great Leaf hockey. The problem is they have a consistent trend of underestimating their opponents, and we saw it again last night. And when they play a team where they're the favorites, where the Leafs are the favorites and the other team's the dog, they shit the bed. And I hope that last night was a wake-up call, because otherwise Florida's going to run all over them if this continues.
Now the Leafs are actually an underdog in this series if you look at the betting line.
There's no way they're the underdogs in this
series. I'm telling you, they're plus money to win the series now. Now here's your underdog.
Well, now they are, but I know going into last night's game they were minus 190.
Yeah, absolutely they were. But again, it's like it's that form. Like, again, if you're a sports bettor and you played the game before and you understand it, how do you bet against the team that just beat them? Like, they've knocked over the hardest team. If I'm Paul Maurice, my message in that dressing room is it gets easier from here in terms of the actual quality. It gets harder in terms of the way the game's played, the intensity, and the bright lights get bigger and make it more difficult. But from a team perspective, you've knocked off the giant, right? Like, this team is not going to be as difficult as Boston, quote unquote. And last night they played like the way the Leafs should have played. No fear. They went out there. They played Florida Panther hockey. The pucks trickled through the crease. It didn't go in. Fine, big deal. But they took their chances. They scored their goals, and that's it. And now if you're leaving there, Florida's like, all the pressure's on the Leafs. Like, they have to beat us, or else if they don't, they'll never hear the end of it. So if you're Florida, you're playing with house money, right? You got nothing to worry about. It's like when the Leafs took that 2-1 series lead against Washington all the way back in 2017. We were fucked. Like, as Leaf fans, we're like, we don't give a shit if we lose 3 straight, because we've shown that we can win in the playoffs with this core. We haven't won a series, but nobody expected it. But it was house money. Remember the pressure on the fucking Washington?
They were the yeah.
Those guys were shitting bricks after Game 3 because all the media was like, the core is aging. You got to win now. And what did they do? They went out. They won the 3 straight. But the Leafs can't let it get to that point. Be the fucking Tampa Bay Lightning from last year. Go out and dominate teams. Win 4 straight. Be like, we're actually better. Let's play that way.
I expect them to have a better response. I think they'll win tomorrow night. I don't think it's going to be Leafs in 5. I think that would be great if they could win 4 games. I'll buy you dinner for the next month.
They're capable of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. Like, if they did win 4 in a row, none of us here would say, okay, it's unexpected. Maybe a little unexpected, but you'd say no. Like, on the grand scheme of things, the Leafs beating the Panthers 4 in a row is very well a possibility given the gulf in quality on the defensive end and the goaltending. But it's the playoffs, and if Bobrovsky shows up and becomes worth his $10 million salary, what are you going to do? We're going to say we got goalied by Bobrovsky? Fuck, we're never going to hear the end of it.
No, that's not good.
And Joe, let's not forget, he's got 2 Vezinas, and there is a reason why he got that $10 million deal. Yeah, so let's not forget. At some point, this guy was like the best goalie on the planet.
Yeah, so, he was like a long time ago. I mean, I don't. Again, like
2 Vezinas is impressive.
It is impressive. I agree, and that's
weren't they?
Yeah,
like that. He got paid $10 million, and ever since he's had that deal, it's been probably the
you're right, Joe. You're right.
Worst contracts in hockey. Either way, this is not that Bobrovsky. The Leafs should be able to find a way to beat him, especially with that. Like, come on. You got Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner. Like, you got to find a way to put the puck past
them. You got to do it, man. Like, that's why it's nerve-wracking, right?
So here's what I'm curious about. If the Leafs now can't get this done, and this ends in a 6-game series loss, 5-game series loss, is Dubas and Keefe back in the the hot seat, or is it all is the Tampa thing now? They got past Tampa, they're safe. What's your theory?
I think Dubas is coming back regardless. I think that he built a very, very good team, and I think MLSE is going to offer him a blank check and stay for 10 years. I don't think Keefe is going to go anywhere either, especially since they just won a round. I don't see any major changes. I think you might see changes in the bottom 6 that were going to happen already, like guys like Kerfoot and Kampf and things like that being taken away. And now, goodbye. Some contracts off the books, but that was going to happen anyway. I don't see any major structural changes to the Leafs. I think there's a potential for like a Ryan O'Reilly team-friendly deal. I think there's potential for I think there's potential for a lot more signings now that Matthew Nyes is coming in at $900K, and if you can play him on your top two lines at $900K, and you can get rid of guys like Kerfoot, Kampf, and Hall, you have like $6-7 million in cap space. You can go out and make the team just that much better. But again, like, this series is the same as the last series. Who's going to win this series is if the stars show up. If Matthews shows up, if Marner shows up, if they all show up, they'll win the series. But I don't foresee any major structural changes. I think, like I said, I think that John Tavares goal saved a lot of jobs and saved a lot of people on this team. Like Sheldon Keefe should be.
No, the reaction said it all. The reaction
like
said it all.
That release from Dubas is like, okay, like they're going to offer me a blank check and I'm going to take it and run, which is what he should do because he's actually a good GM. Think of
But Joe, if they lose to Florida in 6 games, I'm not going to think about the Tampa series at all. Like, this will go down as a catastrophic failure.
That's the point. I wouldn't say catastrophic failure. I think if they lose to Florida, I would certainly be upset. But at the end of the day, it's like, and like winning, like losing the second round is a terrible outcome for them because then I'm going to be like, how the hell did you not make the Cup final this year? Like, you had the team to do it. But I'm just saying, from like an organizational standpoint, I don't think there are going to be any changes. The fans and the media should absolutely rip them apart because if they lose this series, we absolutely will. I don't care. Like, you won a round. Like, congratulations, cool. Like, you've ended a series of memes on Twiter. But other than that, like, but that's it. That's what I'm saying. But and
you lost a year, Matthews. You lost another year.
100%.
Losing this round is not a successful season. But I was just speaking to organizationally. I don't think they would do anything.
What do you think, John Ramo? You agree?
I wouldn't say I agree, but I wouldn't say I disagree. I think, yes, the goal did save some jobs, but at the end of the day, like, if we think winning a round should keep these guys around, it's just a loser mentality because a round means nothing. Like Nick, like Joe, like you make a good point. The only thing you stop with winning a round is you stop the memes on Twitter. And Boston blowing a 3-1 series lead means that we can meme about a 3-1 blown lead in anything for the rest of our lifetime until it flips around again. But that's all it ends. Like, you got to look at this from a perspective and say one round means nothing. If you're not first, you're fucking last, and it works that way in every sport. You guys watch any soccer, you finish second in the league, you get fuck all, right? No one gives a shit if you're 1 point back. Same thing in hockey. You won a round. Do they put a banner up at fucking Scotiabank Arena and say, first round win in fucking 2023? No one gives a shit. I don't care. That's why I said when they won, I didn't fucking jump up and scream or like, finally they did it. I was like, yeah, finally they did it. Yeah. But I'm like, there's no elation, no jubilation. You don't get a fucking trophy for winning one round, right? Yes, it gets the monkeys out the back and the demons, and then you go out and lay an egg in game one like that. Like, fuck, it's the same. It's like the Leafs will leaf. And they haven't done it for long enough to say they've broken the curse yet. But it's like, that. Like, this is your opportunity. Like, it's looking at you and saying, you're going to face Florida. And if you win, it's going to be one of it's going to be one of Carolina or New Jersey. One team that's exceptionally young with a rookie goaltender, albeit playing great hockey, but a rookie goaltender, or a Carolina team that's decimated by injuries and has half their top players missing. So it's like you couldn't write the script better unless you just put them already in the Stanley Cup final. But now you have to actually do it. So one round for me is not enough. If they don't win, you're going to have to look at not wholesale changes, and it'll be difficult because you'll say, well, they broke through one round. And if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, right, Stammer didn't win that first cup till he was 30. Hedman was 29. Like that Tampa core, I don't think people realize, but that Tampa core has been failing for about 10 years, worse than the Leafs were. Like year after year, it was the same, and they stuck with it. The difference is they had defensemen and
even if they lost, for me personally, even if they lost in the first round, like I would have fired Keefe for sure. But Dubas, I think, like I actually genuinely believe that he's a very, very smart guy. Yeah. And he's a good general manager, and I wouldn't have let him go because you knew the next guy that would come in would be like a Burke, Hextall, like Brad Treliving guy that would start trading William Nylander for like second round picks and start acquiring like old like that like that's the way they would go. They would go from like a young guy like Dubas to like one of those old crusty hockey guys that have been around for a while to satiate the media. But
and look at all the acquisitions he made, right? So Ryan O'Reilly ends up scoring that incredible tying goal in Game 3.
Yeah.
He ends up playing a great game 4 in that
Yeah.
comeback, that 4-1 comeback. He
Yeah.
wins critical face-offs that leads to goals.
Yeah.
Just an incredible
right.
series. Jake McCabe is fucking laying out guys. He's playing top minutes with JT Brody. He's basically your Jake Muzzin of 2023.
Yep.
Luke Shen is like revitalizing his career and now a fan favorite again among the Leaf fan base. Like, those three guys had exceptional series against
And
the
you're
Lightning.
100% right.
And then, Noel Acciari scored a big goal in Game 4. Like, he chimed in. And then fucking Lafferty and Aston Reese, we don't need to talk about them. Like, they're just guys who can come in and out. The reality is, all those hit for Dubas. 1, 2, 3, 4. They all hit.
That's right.
He drafted Matthew Nyes.
And he drafted Matthew Nyes, who comes in and basically looks like a veteran day one. But fan base loves this kid.
And that's
I haven't seen a single Leaf fan chirp him.
No, right?
no, because he's 20 years old. The guy hasn't been infected with the Leafs curse. He's good.
Listen, like, his style of play will always be conducive to a successful NHL player. A big body that uses it correctly.
Yep.
He's strong down low. He's fantastic edges. He's a player that will succeed. He's not going to be a 100-point player. He's not going to be an 80-point player. He's not going to be a 60-point player. He'll give you 40, 45, 50 points. If you play him with Matthews and Marner, maybe more. But the bottom line is his ceiling is like the limit right now. Like, he can go as high as he wants to go. Could he be that player? Maybe. But his profile fits what that Leaf team wants, is a guy that can skate, soft hands, he can get to the net, and the moment doesn't faze this kid. Like, he just shows up and plays hockey, which if everybody took the Matthew Nyes approach in this series, damn, this Leaf team would be playing a lot better. But going back to the whole changes is, yes, one round is not enough. Does it feel great? It does. But it doesn't mean anything. Not when the competition is Florida. Not when it's the team you have to beat. So you know what? For the first time, really, the Leafs are facing a team, and this is obviously outside of Columbus. Like, just take away the bubble. This is the first team that the Leafs have played in any playoff series since Max has been drafted. The first real round, not like a play-in round like, Columbus was. But this is the first team where the Leafs are actually probably the favorites. Because
they lost to Montreal. Kyle will remind you of that.
Yeah.
And that's a very similar circumstance to this, because that was a path. You had Montreal to get through, Winnipeg to get through, and then you're in the top 4. This is a very similar context.
This is so typical Leaf fan of us right now. They lost one game in the second round, and we're talking about wholesale changes. Let's see how the series played out, and then we'll...
I'm just, hypothetically, Joe, it would go down as a cataclysmic failure if they lose to this series.
But let's let it get there.
But see, this is the thing. Like, it's like everybody's like, oh, like, how can you say that, right? Like, my fiance, or like, I'll talk to my dad, and they'll be like, you gotta have a little bit of confidence. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, fuck the confidence, because every year I'm confident and I get bit in the ass. It's the same. So you know what, Nick? Like I said on the last podcast before this,
they're gonna lose that series when they lost 7-2 game 1 against Tampa, right? And then
7-2. I was in my basement. I laughed, right? Because I knew that Nick, Kyle, and I had spoken before, and my whole logic was I came with this Debbie Downer and I said, fuck it, I'm gonna say the opposite of everything. Every year I think they're gonna lose. Fuck it, maybe this year let's just say they'll win. And then lo and behold,
let's at 5.
And I'm talking to Nick after game 4 when they're up 3-1, and Nick's like, holy shit, they might actually pull it off, and like, you might have been right. And I'm like, let's keep it. And then they go and lay an egg against Florida in game 1, and I'm sitting here and I'm saying, nah, you know what? Fuck it. Watch them lose, watch them get swept. And you know what? If they do, I'm never gonna fucking watch again. The same old garbage. They don't change. But Joe, do you blame all 3 of us for having that pessimistic overview? Because they've shown us nothing.
After game 5, I was telling Nick, I'm like, I'm never watching this team again. I'm like, they have.
Joe quit. Joe wasn't going to watch game 6. He straight up. Did you not watch, Joe? What did you do?
No, I watched game 6. I knew I was going to end up watching it. But game 5, after game 5, I called Nick and I was like, dude, like, I can't watch this team anymore. Like, it's the same thing every year. They can't close it out. But you know what? I'm trying to step away from that this round. They pulled off a great win against Tampa Bay. I'm very happy. Yes, they lost game 1 last night. I thought they were the better team. They just didn't capitalize on their chances. Let's have the post-mortem conversation should they lose. But right now,
You're right. I'm too negative. I'm sorry, Joe. We should be celebrating today.
No, we shouldn't be celebrating, but it's only down 1-0. They go down 2-0, I'll start feeling a little bit worried. But I just feel like this team, for some reason, that they're just never out of it. Like, I feel like their goal is to torture you the most, and then finally at the end, when you're about to, like, pass out, they release it, and then they start winning.
You know what, though? That's the one thing they have shown us in this playoff is that no matter what they get down, the game's not over. Like, man, even in Game 5 when they went down 3-1, like,
I'm like, this game is not over.
My TV. Like, I was so upset because I'm like, it's a home game. The crowd's pumped. And you know,
Yeah,
how are you not taking that? And then Matthew scores with 3 minutes left, and I'm like, you know what?
It
wouldn't surprise me.
Must-watch television.
It wouldn't surprise
the
me.
team. I would like them to play with the lead a little bit more and start.
Fantastic to not have to fucking.
I don't have to, have a coronary every time I watch them, and like. But you know what? At the end of the day, man, I was talking to my dad about this. I'm like, yeah, they made us suffer for all those wins, but at the end of the day, just fucking win. Like Al Davis used to say, just fucking win, baby. That's it. That's all we
Just stop the puck if you're Samsonov. I don't give a shit how you do it.
Exactly.
Stop the puck.
I expect them to have a way better showing tomorrow.
Yeah,
they go down.
He looks ugly. Like, he's a guy that he can look like he can be incredible. The puck's just sticking to him. And then other times he can look like an AHL goalie. Like that breakaway goal. What happened last night, John Ramo? He like fell on his ass before the puck even left the guy's stick. What was going on there?
It's so frustrating because when you and I'm going to circle it back to the Boston series because I think we saw this again. Did you guys both watch the Game 7 overtime goal? Okay,
of course.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
What did you notice about what Swayman did on the goal?
Okay, I'm just tracing back to the overtime winner. So it's where Verhaeghe types it top corner. Is that right?
Top corner.
What does Swayman do? Well, I know he makes the incredible save on Tkachuk, and then that goal, he's kind of recovering. Like, he's down, and then he's getting up, and he's kind of recovering. He's kind of lost track of the puck, and it just kind of beats him short side, right?
So this is the problem. And again, as a goalie coach, right? I don't particularly teach this, but the way that goaltending nowadays, the way that it's being coached is a lot more. It's about feel than it is necessarily following sort of a strict blueprint in terms of what to do in situation X, Y, or Z, right? Now, I'm not a tall guy, and a lot of these goalies in the NHL are, so they can afford to play a little bit differently. But if you watch that goal again that Jeremy Swayman gives up in that final goal, okay, just both of you guys watch a YouTube video and watch him. From the minute that puck goes from low to high, so they're below the red line, Jeremy Swayman is on his knees. Okay, now nothing wrong with that when the puck's behind the goal line. Me as a coach, I prefer goalies on their feet because it's a lot easier to make a move to where you need to go or to react to a shot rather than already be in sort of your set and down position. Not a fan of that. But if you watch that, Swayman is in his butterfly. The puck gets passed out to Verhaeghe. He does not get up. He stays on his knees. He's in his butterfly before the shot's released. And for Verhaeghe, it's really an easy goal. I mean, it's a great shot, but it's an easy shot to make because the goalie's already told you where he wants you to go. He's no longer reacting to the puck. He's now at a point in time where he's telling you, I'm down, shoot high, right? He's sealing the lower half of the net, but giving it up. He's far enough on Verhaeghe where as a goalie coach, we call it a reaction save. It's not a blocking save. This isn't a 2-foot shot out where if you're going to get beat high, it's impossible because the angle's physically not possible to be made. But from where Verhaeghe's shooting, he's too far out. With Samsonov, it's that same thing, right? Remember the one-timer that Sergachev scored in the first round? Okay, go back and watch that one again. Samsonov is on his knees, sliding when the puck is about 15, 20 feet out. That's a far enough distance where as a goalie, you want to be on your feet because you should be strong enough to make that push crease to crease and get out and challenge the shot. By being on your knees for Sergachev, you just got to get the puck in the air. You've already committed. With Swayman, it's the same thing. And on the breakaway, it's that same thing. He committed, falls on his ass, but the bottom line is they're already doing what the player wants them to do, right? As a goalie, you have to react. If you let the player make the first move, you're in a good position. But when you make the first move, like dropping down on a fake shot on the breakaway, you're cooked. You've already told the goalie that your expectation was to drop down at the first slightest bit of movement. Now the player's in control. So for Samsonov, Swayman, I've seen it plenty of times these playoffs where these goalies are staying on their knees and they get cooked up high. And with Samsonov, it was the same thing. Would you have liked him to yesterday to make another couple big saves? Absolutely, right? Would it have helped if he made a couple more? For sure, right?
Oh,
but listen, I can't.
Even the Montour goal, he's on his stomach in the counts even off.
He's got that thing, Nick, where he kind of goes back and forth. When he's on his game, he's composed. When he's off his game, he's sliding around, he's power sliding, he's in the crease, he's out of the crease, he's all over the shop. It's the composure. What made Carey Price great for 10 years? is that it never looks like he breaks a sweat when he stops a puck. He's there, he's square, he's always composed.
Yeah, he looks sick out
Exactly.
there.
But then you watch the way Samsonov plays. It doesn't look pretty, right? But he stops the puck. But then when he really gets cooked, you start to see it. And what happened in yesterday's game? 2 or 3 goals where he's already down and they go in, right? If he has a good game, right? If he plays like he did against Tampa in Game 6, the Leafs win that hockey game 3-1. Easy.
Yeah.
Like, no questions asked,
Yeah.
right? But you give up those sloppy ones, and it hurts you. So like I said, I don't care about save percentage, but yesterday was a game where the goaltending for the Leafs did not match up to Sergei Bobrovsky's. It's that simple. Bobrovsky outplayed Samsonov, and the Panthers win the game. So tomorrow,
And is that why?
they need to have the better goaltender.
Go on. And Joe, is that why you're saying there might be a little window here for Matt Murray to sneak in at some point if they go on a run here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I think that there might be a position where, you know, there's a big game and Samsonov had a rough one before.
Yeah.
They throw Matt Murray in. But, gentlemen, I have to take off. It's been great talking to you guys and discussing the Leafs. I'm sure I'll be on the show for the round 2 postmortem. But
Of course.
we'll go from there.
And what's your before you go? What's your pick for the series? How many games?
You know I don't like to pick this series, but I mean,
Oh, right. You don't pick. No, that's true. I can ask you about the other ones. I can't ask you about the Leaf one.
well, hang on a sec here. This is you know what? No, I'm not going to give
Don't
Kyle
do
any
it.
fuel. I refuse to pick.
So who you got in the other ones? It doesn't have to be games. Just tell me who you got.
I have Edmonton in 7 against Vegas. I have Dallas over Seattle in 6. And
Okay.
I have the Devils over the Canes in 7, and that's only because there's going to be a Game 7 Freddie Anderson
Wow.
noise.
I
Those
love it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love it. Spoken like a true Leaf fan. I love it.
All right, guys. Let's hope we have something positive to say about round 2.
Yeah,
Go Leafs, go!
absolutely.
Take it easy, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us again, Joe. And we'll talk post round 2.
Ciao.
See you, buddy.
Oh, Nick.
Yeah. Well, no. So hey, I think that'll be a nice segue to your pick. So who do you have here in the Leafs? Or
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you said Leafs in
you know what,
5,
Nick?
right?
Yeah, like I did say Leafs in 5, and you know what? I mean, it's just one of those things I want to stick by because part of you wants to say, you know, typical Leafs fashion, we'll lose tomorrow. The media will blow it up. The Toronto Star will have a field day. They'll write an article. Leafs down
Yeah.
2-0, typical team they should be. And that's it, right? Let the collapse go on, and then we'll get cooked for celebrating like we did for beating Tampa, only to get blasted by Florida. And that's all everybody wants to see. So you know what? I'm going to go with the opposite. Instead of the Leafs leafing, I'm going to say they go on and win 4 straight games. I'm going to say Leafs in 5. It's probably more realistic to say Leafs in 6, given, you know, statistics and odds. But I'm
Yeah.
going to go with what the gut's
Yeah.
telling me, and I'm going to say Leafs in 5. I'm going to stick with it. I think they have a team that's capable.
Yeah, you were just going on about the
Yeah,
Rangers.
sorry,
and that
we
was the
just,
worst series you had ever
I
seen.
just had an app crash here, so I was just trying to get everything
All good.
sorted.
All good.
Um,
So the Rangers Game 7 performance was the worst Game 7 performance
Yeah,
you'd
Nick,
ever seen.
you know what? And obviously, like, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I don't think that's a stretch. Like, that might have been the worst Game 7 in history of the game. Like, that was just, there was nothing. There was no fight, no sustained pressure, no rushes. It was a beatdown. They got absolutely it looked like an NHL versus an AHL team. Kane couldn't step up. Zibanejad couldn't step. Like, they didn't have 5. Like, I was watching this game, and I remember my fiance sitting beside me, and she's like, are the Rangers like a good team? And I just look at her and I'm like, man, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, are the Rangers really good? Because this was just like, what happened to the stuff? And again, you think about it. Chris Kreider was the one dominating. Not one player in that series that they traded for had an impact on any of their wins. It was Chris Kreider. It wasn't any of the guys. Like, when you look at the Leaf series, we're like, yeah, O'Reilly. If they don't have O'Reilly, they don't win. But it wasn't like the Rangers were like, if they don't have Tarasenko or if they don't have Patrick Kane, they don't win. It's like they were just horrible.
Yeah.
So for Kyle, I think, like, you know, and like I can't wait to have him back on because there's so much that I want to discuss with him, especially with respect to, like, and Nick, and I'm gonna put this one to you, is like, where do the and yes, like, I do want to move on to the West, but I think the Rangers are too big of a topic to not touch on. Where do you go from here if you're the Rangers? How do you recover from this given what you've given up? You don't have prospects, you don't have picks. Where do you go from here if you're the Rangers to fix this
I
disaster?
think they gave up like as much, or if not more, than any other team in the league.
Yeah,
Right?
I believe so.
So it's no, they definitely gave up the farm, and it did not pan out for them. And I can't help but think it starts with these kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know those veterans, they're locked up. Their deals are, they're hard to just
You
trade.
can't.
It's hard to just
Yeah.
trade Kreider and Panarin's contract. Whereas these kids on these upcoming, RFAs, it's kind of for whoever acquires them, it's a new opportunity to sign them and to sign them for a digestible rate and to hope a new start
Definitely.
somewhere kind of kicks off their
Yeah.
careers. And so my vote is, I think it starts with Laugh, and I think Kyle would agree.
Yeah.
And I know, I think there might be some merit there because this is a different management group than the one that drafted
Yeah.
him. So maybe they don't love him as much as the old
Yep.
management
Yep.
group. And maybe they're really buying into this narrative where he's not working out hard enough in the offseason and he's putting on weight and he's spending too much time on the 19th hole,
Yeah. Yeah.
If you consider all those things, 0 points in 7 games. Kakko and Cheadle didn't have great series either, not like last year. I gotta think it starts with those kids because those deals are tradable,
That's right.
and they might be attractive to some other teams. Whereas I don't see these older guys, these deals they're just tough deals to trade.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I think when you have contracts like that, you can't really move them, unless you retain a whole bunch of salary. But that ends up hurting you more often than it helps you. AKA look at the Phil Kessel trade that we made. The money we had to retain for years just to get him off the books. So I think for the Rangers, and let this be a lesson. For everybody when it comes to drafting, and again, I feel for Kyle because he's watching the Montreal Canadiens do the same thing. Like, you got to stop just drafting guys because they're the top on Craig Button's draft board. Like, nobody cares about that. You know what I mean? Like, you look at some of the best players in this league, they're not drafted in the first round. They're not even drafted top 10, right? And yet they go out and they pick Lafreniere. And was he the right fit for the team? Maybe. But looking back at that draft, there's probably some better options there, right? Looking back at Capo Caco, not a great pick looking at it. Like, there's, and like we watch Montreal and it's the same things. Like, I watched like Slavkovsky and the guy literally looks like the perfect fit on the Leafs fourth line, right? And it's like there's too many of these guys are just being picked in these positions. And for the Rangers now, you have to swallow that because you were given a blessing. You moved up what? Like the Rangers moved up like 10, 12 spots to get Lafreniere. It was like just this absolute robbery. And you have a chance where they were already a good team and you get to draft first overall by just crazy luck. Like, and then you blow it. It's horrible, right? So I think you have to move all three of them. Like, I don't like what I see from Hedel.
That's a pretty bold take,
Yeah,
all
well, I
three.
mean, like, what else can you move, right? You're not trading Tarasenko. You're not trading Zibanejad. Kreider, is he a free agent this year?
No, I
I
think
think he's
he still
locked
has
up,
some
right? And
term
he's
left on his
so it's
deal.
like,
Yeah.
you look back at it and you're like, you're not going to move any of these guys because none of these guys are in their mid 20s, right? Tarasenko, I mean, I know he's not coming back, but you look at Zibanejad, 30, Panarin, 32. Like, we're not talking about guys that are 25 years old, like a Matthews type or a Marner that's in their prime that you can move for significant assets. Whoever you're getting statistically and historically, Nick, is going to decrease in their production and their value as they get older. It's natural, happens to everybody. So what do you move? You're only three. Listen, you're not trading Fox. You're not trading Truba. You're not getting rid of it. You're not trading Shesterkin because they're too good value wise and you'll never get the full return. So you got to go with the three kids that have underperformed. And even then, what do you really get for Lafreniere? Because whoever's trading for him is trading for his pedigree, right? You're not trading for his production. But could he go off and become a 100-point player? I don't know, but he hasn't shown it to me in New York. I haven't even seen flashes where he looks like a guy that I'd want to play on my first line. So realistically, it's not even like they can get a whole bunch for these young kids. It's almost like you have to stand pat, continue to try with what you have, and if it doesn't work out when everybody gets too old, you blow it up and you start again. I don't think they have assets or contracts that are movable to retool. I think they have to reset or go all the way. Um, and yeah, so that's really it for me on the Rangers. Boston, quick comment, because I think we can have a whole episode on the Boston Bruins.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And you got into it with Swayman there a bit,
yeah,
but what happened here? To me, it sounds like Jim Montgomery misplayed his goalies.
I think he did misplay the goalies.
He
That's a
yeah.
really good point, Nick. And again, it's funny because everything we're speaking about now, we all three of us on the last podcast kind of hit the nail on the head with that, where we were like, everyone's talking about the Leafs goalies. What about Boston's? Ullmark's been historically
Yeah.
terrible in the playoffs. Swayman's never been there. And lo and behold, Ullmark craps the bed. Arguably was playing with an injury. I mean, he didn't look himself. He looked a little bit stiff, I'll be honest. So, but again, didn't perform. And look what happens. No matter how good that roster is top to bottom, if your goalies don't perform, you don't win. And Boston epitomized it. I still said Boston would win, but I'm pretty sure I made the comment of there's something about that President's Trophy curse that scares me. And lo and behold, here we are.
You absolutely did. You absolutely did.
3 weeks after that one, and we're sitting here saying Boston's there. I think for Boston, there's no way to get back. I think they're completely done. I think they have no chance of being a competitive team anymore. I think Marchand will retire. And I think with him gone, you have no number one center. I think Krejci leaves as well, because I think he was kind of there because Bergeron was there. Coming back from his hometown to play again was probably because Bergeron wanted to run it back. But I think with everybody leaving in Boston, here's my hot take. A team will offer sheet Jeremy Swayman. Because right now, Boston has $5 million in cap penalty. They have a whole bunch of guys that they have to re-sign. If somebody offer sheets Jeremy Swayman for $6 million, $6.5 million, they'll give up their first-round pick because Swayman's probably worth that in a trade. But the worst part is Boston's not going to want the first-round pick from whoever offer sheets them. And for me, I look at the Leafs and say if Samsonov doesn't become an option, Muzzin is going to be sent to Robida Island this summer. He's gone. He's going to be LTIR. You get $5.5 million from him clean. Hall's $3 million comes off the books. Kerfoot's $3 million comes off the books. All of a sudden, your salary cap strapped Maple Leafs are looking at $12 million in cap space. Would you give Jeremy Swayman a $6 million offer sheet? I fucking would, because you want to stick it to the Boston Bruins.
That's a great deal,
right? Like for me, you stick it to Boston. You get a 23, 24-year-old goaltender who just came off almost a Vezina caliber season as a backup. And then if you can keep a guy like Samsonov for a lower price because he's only proved it for one season, holy shit, everything's starting to look rosy. But my hot take is somebody will try to offer sheet Jeremy Swayman. And if they're smart and they hit that number just right, they could put Boston in a world of trouble.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think he's a very talented goalie. I think it was poor guy gets shoved into a game seven with no experience whatsoever. No goalie wants to be put in that position.
Not.
And hey, he still had a great game.
Excellent.
I know there were some criticisms on the game winner, but the Kachuk stop, keeping his team in there. I mean, they were poised to win that game. 59 seconds left, and Montour
You know
scored.
what I mean? Like, and if they had won that and the game ended 3-2, we'd all be talking about how Montgomery's a genius. You know what I mean? Like, goes over to Swayman and listen, rightfully gives Ullmark the starts in the series because he's going to be your Vezina winner this season, and he had an excellent year, and it would be harsh to not start him. But if he was genuinely 10% injured and you can't trust Jeremy Swayman, there's a problem there. And that's on Montgomery, because at the end of the day, it's not like Ullmark's proven to us over the last 3 years that he's a world-class playoff goalie. His playoff record was poor. Now he's playing with an injury and you don't take a chance on Swayman. Like, you're almost doubling down that you want your guy to fail. So why not give Swayman that chance? No. And he was great. Listen, he fucked up on the last goal. I get it. And the worst part in hockey, and as a goalie, Nick, me and you have experienced this, right? It's not about the 50 saves you make. It's about the one shitty goal that you let in that you don't stop. Nobody remembers the big saves. You remember the back. That's why you bring up to me, but gee, what about the breakaway save? My first instinct, Nick, is to bring up and talk about the shitty overtime goal that he gave up. Because that's the way it works as a goaltender. It's all mental. It's all that, but you're the last line of defense, and you get criticized when you get the ultimate praise when you win, and you get the ultimate criticism when you lose. And Swayman was great, but when you give up an overtime goal like that, where you're on your knees from the start of the play to the finish, you've effectively conceded and told the shooter where you want him to go. That's on Swayman. He's got to stop that puck. And I think he said it at the end of the game in the interview. He's like, I got to make one more save. And everyone's like, oh, my God, like, it's so harsh on the young kid. He got thrown in cold. No. That's a goaltender with the right fucking mentality, because he knows he fucked up on that last goal, and he knows he's got to stop it. And if I'm the management there, that's the guy that I want starting, because he knows, and he won't make that mistake. I mean, he probably will, but he worked to not make that mistake again. Not Ullmark saying, oh, I didn't want to bring up my injury. Man, fuck that. If you were that hurt, tell the coach you can't go. Don't be a hero. Because now look at you. You're all golfing. When you should be playing in the next round because you wanted to be a hero. Give it to Swayman. They didn't do it. That ultimately let them fuck up. It's tough, man. It's tough from a Boston perspective.
And lastly, on the Bruins, I mean, we got to talk a little bit about Patrice Bergeron. I mean,
man,
he looked sick in that game. He looked absolutely sick, and it was the worst I'd ever seen Bergeron look. Krejci, I know he scored the power play marker, but he wasn't looking that hot either.
Right.
I think it's fair to say we've seen the end of him. And Bergeron he just didn't look himself. And that whole game, it was just that you had no confidence
You
in
know
him.
what?
He wasn't playing with any
You know what,
confidence.
Nick? I mean, listen, I hate the Bruins almost more than I hate the Montreal Canadiens. I just cannot stand them, and but it has nothing to do with Bergeron. I love Bergeron. Watching him at the end, and when he cried with Marchand, that's the end of the rope for him. He's done, right? If he really wanted to run it back, he would have been bumping the guys and said, you know what, let's run it back. But he knows he's done. And when you look at his face in that series, Nick, that looks like a guy whose body is just fit. He's done. Like the heart wants to keep going, but the mind is telling him it's time to cut it off. And Boston should be happy because every elder player they have, they seem to strike gold, whether it's Chara till his 40s as an elite defenseman, whether it's Bergeron at 38 an elite centerman, whether it's Krejci 37 elite guy. Like Boston struck gold. Every guy they get that goes over 30 ends up becoming a Hall of Fame guy and plays his best years from 30 and beyond. But that was it from Bergeron. Came back early in the series because he wanted to play. He wasn't ready to go. Okay, Krejci was playing with an ailment. They weren't healthy. If Bergeron and Krejci are healthy at the start of that series, they win 110%. I guarantee it. But they weren't healthy, and they came back to fight for the team. But you could see on Bergeron's face, every shift was a grind. It hurt, and he was out there throwing the body around. He gave it everything. But where do you go from here if you're Boston? You have no prospects in the pipeline. If he goes, your A1 center is Charlie Coyle. Your first line is Coyle, Marchand, and Pasternak. And your second line is what? Bertuzzi's gone. All these other depth great guys, Garrett Hathaway, gone.
Hall,
Hall,
Zaka,
gone.
yeah.
Zaka, free. Like, it's like, where do you go from here? Like, all your free agents are now gone, right? And you don't have a number one centerman, and you're not going to trade for one. I think if you're Boston, you cut your losses now. I'd have a sit-down talk with Marchand and say, listen, we love you. You're a hero here. You're going in the rafters. You won a Stanley Cup with us. Where do you want to go? Okay, you're still an 80-point, 90-point player on a really good team. Get a big return for him. And I know he's older now. I know he's 34, so teams are going to be cautious. But get what you can out of the guys you have. I would even say look at a guy like Pasternak because he can rebuild you almost in one trade between him and Marchand. But what are you going to do? You're going to have Pasternak and Marchand play in between a third-line center? There's no big guy on the market this year that's going to fill the hole of Bergeron, right? So how do you keep their production up? Because guess what? If Marchand falls off the cliff next year at age 35, he's worth fucking nothing. And his contract is huge and Boston's going to swallow it. So trade these guys while they're at their peak, recover, and get yourself back in a position. The decor is fantastic. McAvoy will be there for 10 more years. Carlo will be there for 10 more years. I don't know if Lindholm's still signed long term, but I think he is. Lindholm will be there. Spend some money on Orlov and keep your core four as Orlov, Lindholm, Carlo, and McAvoy. You got Grzelcyk as your number 5 and bring in whatever other pine cone you want to play on the bottom pair. But your decor and with Swayman and Ullmark, you're set. But reset your forwards and try to do a quick retool. I don't know where
Yeah. It's
I
tough.
don't know,
It's
man. It's
tough.
so there's such a big
I
question mark there, man.
it's very very tough territory. And just to wrap up the
Yes,
East, speaking
yes.
of teams that are even in a worse state, I'm just going to read some contracts
Go
for
for it.
you, and you're gonna tell me just how fucked
Yeah,
this
go
team
for it.
is. JG Padro, 3 years left at
Oof.
$5 million a year. He had 1 point in the series against Carolina. Anders Lee, 3 years left on his deal, $7 million a year. He had 2 points in his final 16
Mm.
games of the season, including the playoffs. Josh Bailey, 1 year left at $5 million. He was a healthy scratch for all 6 games against Carolina. And of course, Bo Horvat, 3 goals, 7 assists over 25 games with the New York Islanders. Your prized possession, your big trade
Yep.
acquisition ends up being an absolute clunker. That's the Islanders for you, and that's a team that I think is even more
Yes.
fucked than the Boston Bruins. And I think we all picked the Islanders.
We
So
did.
we were all wrong on
Yeah,
that
we did
pick.
all pick
We
the
were all pretty
Islanders.
bullish on Sorokin. We were all pretty bullish, and yet he gave up that goal. Like you said, goalies, you can have a great series, but if you give up that clunker, that very important one, it's all you're
That's
going to
it.
remember. And just looking at his reaction when that
Yeah.
goal goes in, that terrible goal that goes in, you just know, that's gonna eat up his whole summer,
100%.
And I just feel terrible
Yeah,
for the guy.
and you know what? I think that if you're the Islanders, he's almost worth moving because you have no trade chips. But I mean, he can't stay there, man. Like this guy will burn out by age 30 with the amount of shots he faces. Like this guy does everything for this team. We saw with John Gibson, right? When he was holding up those awful Anaheim Ducks teams. And everyone's like, oh, the Leafs should trade for this guy. He's great. And then 1-2 seasons later, the guy's struggling to hit a .900 save percentage because he's fucking burnt out. He's playing every game and he can't take it. In New York, those contracts are horrific. At least Bailey comes off next season. Is he a UFA this summer or next summer? Next summer, right?
Bailey will be a UFA
Next
next
summer.
summer.
So he's going to have another year where he's going to, again, no one's going to make a
1
trade
year
for
left.
him.
1 year left.
Right?
Yep.
So, I mean, they can maybe get something for him if they eat $4 million and say, hey, listen, he's $1 million player. Maybe you get something on the third line, fourth line, 20 points, maybe. But nothing. Anders Lee, I'm pretty sure he's the captain there. Or is it Brock Nelson? I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it's Anders Lee is the captain.
I think it's Anders
He's going
Lee,
nowhere. No one's going to take that.
Yeah.
Bo Horvat, you just signed there. He's going nowhere, right? Matthew Barzal, shadow of the player he is, going nowhere. But if you're the Islanders, you really have nothing. Like literally, you have nothing. And it's funny because I remember everybody complaining about when the Leafs got rid of Sweet Lou, baby, Sweet Lou leaving Toronto. Everyone was upset, and yet here we are giving Matt Martin. I'm pretty sure, did he not give Leo Komarov some dumb money? And I'm pretty sure he's still on the books.
Terrible
there or
money for
something, or
Komarov.
whatever he's doing.
Yep.
Like Matt Martin, $3 million. Like these guys.
That fourth line is still signed. They're still signed
You know what
for
I mean?
next year. Martin, Cizikas.
It's just brutal. It's that
it's a joke.
It's that dinosaur management where they've signed these big bullish brute guys, and the team's absolutely horrific. They're genuinely unwatchable. They're horrible. And now they got these big deals, and everybody complained about Lou Lamoriello leaving, right? And it's like, hello, did you want to see what happened in New York? And he had that one great year when Barry Trotz took him and everybody, and they were hitting on everything, and they signed Komarov, and they were looking. Everyone's like, oh, this is what the Leafs should have been. And now it's like, let's not judge them on a 1 year sample size. This is the real Islanders team, not the one you saw for the 2 years in a row under Barry Trotz that played a defensive game and survived it. Because they had the Devin Taves was still there at the time. Then you trade him and you get 2 second-round picks for what ends up being, arguably one of the top defensemen in the league and plays alongside Cale Makar, in Colorado. So it's when you look at the Islanders, it's like, where do you go from here? They're kind of in the same tier as Boston, where it's like, you just got to blow it up, get whatever you can for, and even what's Brock Nelson on there?
Brock Nelson, I don't have that one on here, but I can't imagine it's as bad.
No, I can't imagine it's as bad, but I mean, you kind of look at it, and the Island, like Nick, there's not even, if I was to go, give me an Islanders prospect who you think's got a shot, people are still going to say Josh Hosein because that's how little they give a shit about the Islanders. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Nelson signed for 2 more years after this year at $6 million AAV.
Oof. Again, it's
it's not good, man. It's this core.
It's a lot of mediocre players on slightly above.
He's locked up this mediocre core.
Yeah. You know what?
It's tough.
Blow it up. I think the Islanders have a good fan base. They're a club that's got some history.
Yeah.
They're a team that's got some good players. They won three cups in a row, and this is a team that's had a lot of success in the past. But the Islanders just seem to feel like the kind of that throwaway team now in the East that you're almost like, oh, what are the Islanders trying to be? What type of team are the New York Islanders? So, I don't know where, I don't know where they'll go. But Nick, I mean, after hearing those contracts, this is if I'm them, I'd want Lou.
No, and I can't imagine Sorokin would want to sign for a team playing behind that kind of team.
Just
so
brutal.
it's tough.
They got really Noah Dobson's the guy there that I think you have to build around.
Yeah.
And Mayfield's solid.
Yeah.
The decor is not bad, right? Adam Pelech, solid player. Ryan Pollock, solid. But they had injuries during the year. But the decor is good. You can build around it. It's just going forward. It's anemic. Matthew Barzal's not that guy. He was for a season, but he's not that guy anymore. He's not that electric guy that we thought.
And Horvat isn't either. But you just signed him to a big contract.
Horvat made it clear he wanted to stay in Vancouver, and he was doing well. And then you get traded. The Islanders is the worst team for a guy like that to go to because they're a horrible offensive team. And you put a guy like that there and he struggles and everybody's surprised. But you shouldn't be because you knew that was coming. And he signs because who's not going to take that money? And if he tests free agency, he's not going to go onto a competitive team because nobody's got $7-8 million to give a guy like that anymore. But on the Islanders, he figures, hey, there's enough talent here where we might score. But then you look at that and you're like, man, we're still relying on guys like fucking, oh, God, what's his name there? The older guy. Oh, my God, I'm blanking on him now. He played with the Devils for a bit.
Oh yeah,
Oh, Palmieri, thank you.
Palmieri, Parise.
Like,
It's a
come,
fucking
dude.
joke, man. Those are two former Devils who are
You know what
getting
I
old
mean? Like
now.
it's like this is
Yeah,
the most
it's a
Lou
joke.
Lamoriello team you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
again, Islanders
absolutely.
fans, like, stick with it because I hope it gets better.
Yeah,
Um, but it's
yeah,
tough. It's tough. And
yeah.
other than that, I think we've covered everyone
Moving,
from the East. Yeah.
yeah, yep. No, moving out west. The game that'll be starting in about half
Yep.
an hour. We got Vegas against
Oh man.
Edmonton. Before we get into
Ooh.
predictions, there, quick little recap. Your thoughts on LA and
Yeah. Yeah.
Edmonton, as well as Vegas and Winnipeg. I mean, takeaways from that, and then we can get
So
into our
so
picks.
I'll try to be a little more brief with you because Nick, I mean, we could be here for hours
Yeah,
because it's there. It's
I
so
know, I
interesting.
know.
But to go into that, it's my hot take for the series. I got the Golden Knights in five. Um, I just
Yeah,
Nick, me and you have raved, and we've always been on the same page with this. I love that Vegas core. I just love it.
yeah.
It's such a playoff built team. It's
And the
heart, it's
defense.
desire. They can play. Will the goaltending hold up? I don't know. But if they had their guy, their all star in net, they might be fine. But the Edmonton Oilers are going to run into this decor, and it's not going to be easy. And I just think that if there's one coach, and again, I love Bruce Cassidy, great coach,
Yeah,
he's going to devise a plan to slow these guys down and just stay out of the box. Like Edmonton, half of their goals in the first round were power play goals. This team
yeah,
lives on the power play, and they will die by the power play. And Vegas is pretty
yeah,
disciplined, but they're a team that they don't care to score a lot, and they play incredibly good defensively. But it's wave after wave of top, rugged defensemen that are going to be going after McDavid. This is not Sean Dursey. This is not, Derek Forbert, right? Like,
yeah,
we're talking about guys that are out here
yeah,
and ready to go and play against these guys. Vegas is a nightmare team to play. And I almost want Edmonton to win because I wouldn't want the Leafs to face a team like that because it's the exact
sure.
debacle that they would have to come up against. But for Edmonton, I don't know. I love that Vegas team, Nick, and I'm sticking with my guns here. Love Edmonton, but Skinner didn't show me enough in that first round to be confident. And there's a lot of offensive firepower there, right? Like, we're talking Mark Stone, we're talking Jack
Yeah,
Eichel. Like, this team can turn it up offensively if and when they want to. Chandler Stevenson, great core there. They will score goals, but they can defend. They're effectively what Edmonton
yeah.
wants to be, just with a slightly worse offense, but a much better defensive structure and core. So I'm going with Vegas in five. That's my take for that series.
I'm stunned. I'm stunned because you're the guy who picked Winnipeg to upset
I
Vegas,
did pick Winnipeg to
and
upset Vegas.
you and Kyle both
We
picked
did.
Winnipeg, and so
We did.
you're high on Vegas
You know
all
what,
of a
Nick? I
sudden.
got my tail between my legs on that one. But again, after those first three games, I don't think anybody was looking at my take or Kyle's take as one that was far fetched. Winnipeg looked like a team that could
Yeah,
keep up, and then all of a sudden, everybody gets injured. I think if that Winnipeg team's
yeah,
fully healthy, absolutely they win a couple more games. But that was a Winnipeg
yeah,
team that had injuries, and Connor Hellebuck was
yeah,
good but wasn't excellent. I think if they were healthy and had the guys they needed, they would have been fine. But you
yeah,
lose Josh Morrissey, like, come on, like, it's absolutely
yeah,
ridiculous for the Winnipeg Jets to have come through that series with the injuries they did. But they surprised me, and they played up to how I thought they would, and they gave Vegas everything. And Vegas was fortunate they came up against a team that had a lot of injuries. But now that you look at it, this is a better matchup for Vegas because Winnipeg's a little bit of a deeper team top to bottom. Like, Nino Niederreiter,
mm,
third line, like Andrew Kopp, like like Appleton, like they got a lot of really good depth guys and a really good top six that can
yeah,
compete. So does Edmonton, but Winnipeg in terms of defensive play have the goaltender. Their defensive core is worse than Edmonton's, bar Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk. But goaltending wise, and I thought if they stayed healthy, they could do just enough. And for the first three games of the series, everyone was like, holy shit, maybe this team can do it. And then the injuries came in, and in my head, I'm
yeah,
like, there goes my prediction, right? Because I thought I had made a good call on it, and it looked good after the first three. And then the injuries came, and I'm like, oh, that's it, they're done. It's just a matter of time. But Winnipeg, Nick, you want to talk about a team that needs to blow it up? That's a team that needs to do.
How about
Oh, I
that press
absolutely
conference?
love it.
I've never seen a bigger blow up by a single coach
Absolutely love it.
in the league.
Absolutely love what Bonus said because you know what? Tell me he was wrong. Those guys did not give. They did not play with any after the injuries. They fucking mailed it in. They said, "Fuck it, we're done. We want to go play golf. Season's over." Good for the coach. They absolutely shit the bed, and I'm tired of like Blake Wheeler. Like, oh, he should have said it in the room. Man, fuck saying it in the room. Go
Yeah.
to the media and tell them what you really think. These guys did not go out. They didn't fight. Our big guys didn't give a shit. And all season long, he was making the same comments. And you know why, Nick? Because those guys don't want to be there anymore. Pierre-Luc Dubois wants
Yeah.
out. Scheifele doesn't want to be there anymore. Blake Wheeler's fucking 40,000 years old. He's tired. Okay? Just like the guys in the past. Winnipeg is not a place, unfortunately, and I hate to say this as a fellow Canadian, but a lot of guys don't want to live in Winnipeg. And half that team wants to go. So, of course, there's no desire. But now you put 2 and 2 together, and was Rick Bowness really wrong in what he said? Because he made comments like this earlier in the season. These guys just don't want to be there.
I don't think he
This
was
is their last
wrong.
dance.
I just think it creates an awkward situation now because he's lost the room with those comments. I don't know how the guys could possibly support what he said.
You're right.
And then now he's coming back. Scheffeldayoff announced he's coming back. How do you come back to a room that you've effectively lost? It's created a very awkward situation.
I just think because they're going to blow it up. They know these guys aren't going to be here any longer. So fuck it, keep Bowness. Because who else are you really?
So we know Dubois gone.
Yeah, they're going to trade Dubois.
We know what Scheifele gone.
I'm going to say that Mark Scheifele's gone too. I think Wheeler's gone.
Gone.
I think they will take that core 4 of, let's say, Ehlers, Scheifele, Wheeler, and oh my God, who's the last guy we just mentioned? There's one more there.
Those are the big 3. Those are the big 3.
Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Because I don't think Kyle Connor, you're not getting rid of him. No, I don't think
Kyle Connor's
those defensemen, Morrissey, Pionk, I don't think you're getting rid of them.
But I think you trade Connor Hellebuyck.
Oh, and Hellebuyck. Hellebuyck, yeah.
Right? And as much as I think it would be dumb to trade Hellebuyck, the recent goaltending contract situation of Price and Bobrovsky tells me that as much as he's probably worth $10 million if he can play the way he's playing, I'm scared to give a goalie that contract. But if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, you're going to trade him now this summer to the Toronto Maple Leafs. No. Yeah. I mean, listen, that would be the pickup.
That would be something.
Listen, if I was the Leafs, there's some goalies out there that would make me say, listen, even let's say knock on wood, Nick, right? Let's say the Leafs actually go on and win the Stanley Cup. Okay, let's say in a perfect world, me and you get to see a cup before we fucking die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'd love it.
Because that's what it feels like in this day and age, is that we're never going to see one in our lifetime. But when I look at this, I think if you're the Leafs, there's some options this summer. And for Winnipeg, you got to take advantage of that because there will be a big market for Hellebuyck. So to the Jets, blow it up. Nobody wants to play for that team anymore. They're starting to turn into the Buffalo Sabres of old, where it's looking like it's going to be a dumpster fire because nobody likes being there. And it's just chaos in the room. Get what you can. Rebuild around Kyle Connor. I'd keep Nikolai Ehlers because I think he's a good player. But I'd keep Ehlers and Connor and say, there are your 2 good forwards. I'd look to try to find another center. And that's where you're going to get your trades, right? Can you flip Dubois for another guy that's like a Kadri-level center, but maybe 25 years old?
Yeah.
And then make the trades. But the worst part about this is, you don't want to become like a 500 team where you're getting like the 15th overall pick. So I think if you're Winnipeg, you just blow it up and you get prospects. Don't bother rebuilding the squad.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? You're going to keep some of the good core, like you said, Pionk and Morrissey, and then what? You're going to get 39 wins next season or 38 wins, and you're going to go 500 on the year, get a shitty pick, and be stuck in this mire. You either blow it up to rebuild, or you go all in and win it.
Yeah.
If you get stuck in the middle, you end up like the Islanders, right? A team that's got a bunch of mid players on shitty contracts.
What's nice is they still have some pieces. I mean, Perfetti's going to come along. That guy, Rory McCrory or whatever that they just drafted, the American, Rutger McCrory. So they got pieces. But, the future isn't so
it's
dire
not so
there.
Dire. Nope.
I just think that, I just hope to God they ship those guys out so there's no drama there with 100%. The coach. But to bring it full circle, that Edmonton Vegas, I got Edmonton in 7.
Yeah, that's completely
I'm bullish on Vegas.
Yeah, I know.
But to me, I know they are. But to me, I think that power play is just running at too historic a rate, and I think they can abuse Brisebois. I don't think Jets were good enough to abuse Brisebois, but I think Edmonton absolutely can. And I think over 7 games, if that power play just clicks effectively at 40% or so, which is pretty low compared to how they're hitting right now, I think they can be just fine. So I got them in 7, but it'll be tight. It'll be tight.
And then just one quick comment on the Kings, because I got to shout out my Kings, man.
Yeah.
First of all, that was the most exciting series that I'd watched in a long time. That was just
It was, yeah.
fantastic hockey.
I think
Um,
I think it was the
and the
best
turning
series.
point was that 3-0 game 4 in LA. When they were up 3-0, if they won that game, the series is 3-1, it's over. Edmonton doesn't win. But they have their mini blow up, and that's going to be a learning curve for that younger LA team. Is you win that
Yeah,
game when you're up 3-0. End of the first, Nick, 3-0. I'm at home, I'm
yeah,
laughing. I'm like typical, like this is it.
yeah, man. You had
It
it.
was
You
in their
had it.
hands.
I was about to applaud you and say this is the man who got the
And
pick right.
and lo and behold, they pull the Maple Leafs, they blow the 3-0 lead,
Yeah,
and just like that, they lose the series because at that point momentum's gone. Edmonton gets the split in LA. You come back to Edmonton, that's always going to be tough. And then it's another game. It was back and forth. It was close. LA was right there. They give up that unfortunate goal, and there you go. 3-2 series done. Edmonton, LA's changed up. But that LA team, man, my God, do they play good? Like they're not superstars,
yeah,
but they play good, and they're going to be a force to reckon with. They're a couple pieces away from being a Stanley Cup contender. That team. They need another top defenseman. They need another top forward. They need somebody to help move Kopitar to the second line. He's getting older now, and he can't
yeah,
carry that. He's not an 80, 90-point player anymore. They need a number one
yeah,
center. That's why everyone's saying Matthews will go there. Like Matthews would be an excellent fit in LA,
yeah,
right? Because he'd take that young team of guys like
yeah,
Byfield, Camper. Like they're
yeah.
great. So keep going. LA, love the team, love the coach. And man, Corpusalo was a stud. He got roughed up at the end, but I mean, he was tired.
He got
He was
roughed up at
tired.
the end, and I think that creates a big debate: is do you
I think you
re-sign him
do.
because he's an
I
impending
think you do.
UFA? Do you re-sign him, or do you trade for a guy like Hellebuck?
Or do you try to
You
offer
know
sheet a
that
guy
that's
like
that's the
Swayman,
golden question.
right? Because if Jeremy Swayman's
Or do you
available
option a
to
guy
you,
like
you could
Swayman?
do something like that.
Or do you believe in Cal Peterson, who I was
I
always a
know
big
you would,
fan of?
yeah.
You know, it might be a
You were a
lot to
big
throw him
fan,
in, right
for
right
sure.
away, but I think that guy's
Yeah.
got a lot of talent, lots of pedigree. So I think goaltending's a big
Yes, yeah,
thing
they got
there.
to
Is
sort
what
that
they
out.
do this summer
They
with the
got to sort
goaltending.
that.
They might re-sign Gavrikov. I don't know if they re-sign the goalie. And then I think Quentin Byfield had a really rough
Yeah,
playoff.
that was
And as a Byfield fan,
it
it
was
was tough to
tough.
see in Game 5 when he was on for those
Yeah.
goals against, missed defensive assignments. Kyle would be all over him
Oh
right
yeah,
now
he
if he was
would.
on the
And
show.
you know what? Kyle's got every right to, but at the end of the day, Quentin's still a young player, and he's gonna learn. And
Yeah,
there's nobody better you would want to learn from in this league aside from Kopitar and Patrice Bergeron. Those are your two centers you'd ideally ever want to model your career around. And he's got one there, and I think they'll be fine. I got no worries. But that's a good team. More Grunstrom. These guys are like. There's a lot of ex-Leafs on
yeah,
that team. Jersey, like it shows you, like the
yeah,
pedigree's there.
yeah,
They'll be fine. But add the pieces they
yeah,
need. This was never a year where they were expected to do anything. They were a surprise team that played explosive offense, a really good game, good system, puck possession hockey, but they could mix it
yeah,
up when they needed to with guys like Moore and Grunstrom. They're a good side. They need a couple pieces, but they'll be there, Nick. It's unfortunate because, again, it's a couple series where I was like, I thought I had the predictions right, and
yeah,
then, like, it was either injuries or, like, a blown lead that just swung the
yeah.
momentum. So unfortunate, but again,
I just hope
interesting.
I hope they don't become the Leafs where it's first round
I
bust
know, I
every
know. I
year,
hope it doesn't
and
become
and,
like
and
that
it's,
as
it's two
well.
straight years.
But
So we'll see. And then very lastly,
yes,
Dallas, Seattle, that's the last series. Of course, Seattle upsets the
yes,
Avs. Dallas pretty handedly beats the Minnesota Wild in six
that was
games. So who you got in that one, and what did you think of those
You know
two
what? I'll be
teams
pretty
getting
brief.
knocked out?
That series wasn't as great as I was, maybe anticipating. Or I think me and Kyle that was probably our biggest one we got. We thought it was going to be a little more exciting than that, but
Yeah.
a little bit of a snooze fest. But Jake Ottinger, man. Like I mean, I
Yep.
raved about him in the first round, and I think we were all pretty spot on with that. You
Yep.
know, in terms of the way he played, he was a stud, lights out, made the big saves when he needed to make them. And he's going to be the X factor for me in this series as well. Yes, Seattle's got the lead, but it's like the Leafs need to have the Seattle mentality right now. Like this is a team that
Yeah.
you could put them up against the 91 Montreal Canadiens or put them up against whatever you think is you could put them against Boston and I guarantee you they'd give them a deadly run. Like this Seattle team is just playing
Yeah.
hockey and playing the way and Grubauer has been a stud. And we all laughed about Grubauer at the start and rightfully so because he wasn't playing great, but that's interesting. Listen, I don't have much to say on the Avs because I think the Avs lost the most man games in NHL history this year to injury. So
Yeah.
to me, it's a write-off. These guys played injured the whole year. Cale Makar wasn't up to his usual standards. Whether he was battling something or not, I don't know, but he knows he's got to be better, and I think the team does as well. But you lose Gabe Landeskog for the whole year. He's one of your top guys. He's a heart and soul character type of guy. And you lose him. So injuries there were tough. I thought Georgiev was okay.
Yeah.
But you have no Nichushkin. It's like you could see they were thin up front, and they relied too heavily on the big guys, and they were gassed. Like McKinnon by Game 7 was like, guy couldn't even lace up his own skate anymore. And he gave everything,
Yeah.
and he's a stud. But I have no fear with the Avs. They're going to absolutely bounce back. Newhook will take a step next year, and I think he'll become a top player for them. But let them get healthy, and then let's have a conversation, because that was a banged up team.
Yeah.
And Seattle took advantage, so give them credit. But I want to see Seattle keep going, because they're playing the way I want the Leafs to play. Like the Leafs are just playing not to lose. Not to take
Yeah.
the words of John Cooper, but the Leafs are playing not to lose still in these playoffs. And I want to see the Leafs play to win. Seattle's playing that they don't give a shit if they win or lose. They're just playing hockey because they like playing hockey and they have to. So keep going, Seattle. Love the team. Love the coach. Love the jerseys. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. Absolute banging jersey.
Love it.
Um,
I was going to wear that until I pulled this sucker out because
Nick,
I had to.
You know what, man? We got to support the Buds. So that's it. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say there. In terms of prediction, I mean, it's hard to bet against Seattle now, isn't it? Given the Game 1 win and not home ice, like they've got home ice advantage back now. I'm still going to say Dallas, because I believe that between Hintz and Robertson and Sagan and Ben and Jake Ottinger, how can they lose? I'm going to go Dallas in 7. I think it will be a 7. I don't see Seattle letting up.
Wow.
I think they'll be great.
They're too pesky.
They're way too pesky. But hopefully the Leafs are watching them, because, my God, they got to take a page.
Yeah.
Big game tomorrow. I'm nervous as shit. But we'll see. And just, go Leafs, go, man. I mean, they got a point to prove tomorrow to fans as well, that they're here to stay.
Yeah. And very briefly, Avs, big stat from that one. Every single goal in the series either scored or assisted by McKinnon, Rantanen, and Taves Makar. So just goes to show you the lack of depth on that team. So say what you want about the injuries, but those bottom 6 guys did not show up, and I think that's a big reason why Seattle, a more 4-line team, was able to beat them. And then lastly, Dallas. I mean, they're my pick to win the cup. So I'm not too surprised they handedly beat the Wild. I think that Evason made a mistake by starting Fleury in Game 2. We've talked a lot about goalie blunders so far this show, and I think that was a tough spot to put Flower in, and it just didn't work out for them. So tough for Minnesota. That's starting to become like a Leafs team where you're seemingly losing every year in the first round. Got to feel for them.
Really does, Kaprizov didn't really.
He didn't show up.
He just didn't shine, and that's a team that has to win.
Him, Zuccarello, Boldy.
They have to win by committee, and Zuccarello's not a guy Zuccarello's almost 35 years old too, so this is not a guy that's going to be around for per se too many more years. But they have a stud in Matt Boldy, and they like Dean Evason's got him playing, like they play good hockey overall, and their decors, everything's by committee there, right? And that's why you root for them, because they're a team that just goes out and plays the right way every night. But at some point, you need the skill and talent, and they don't have that. That goes to show you that too much of something is bad, and too much of it being a committee team and a bunch of guys that can grind and can play the right way. Sometimes you need a guy to go along. Like they need a 1 center. I'm sorry, they need a 1C. They need like a Matthews. They need a McDavid. They need a McKinnon. They need a 1C that can play alongside Kirill Kaprizov and help him hit. Because, we got Kaprizov's almost hitting 100-point seasons playing with Ryan Hartman as their center. Hartman would be fantastic as a 2C. And then you bump Joel Eriksson Ek down to 3C, and now you have depth and defensive stability, but they need a 1C, and they need another winger to move Zook down to the second line and balance everything out. You know what I mean? Like almost like play Matt Boldy beside somebody else and Kaprizov. But they're missing that 1 center. They're missing a superstar down the middle that can carry them. And really, they haven't had one since arguably like Mikko Koivu? And we're going way back, and he wasn't even a stud. He was like a steady 70-point guy that would be a defensive staple. But they haven't had that 1C, and they're waiting for that. I think they need another superstar there, but they got a great fan base over there in Minnesota. And Minnesota's a hockey fucking city, man. Like we're talking the Gophers and everything. Man. Like this is a hockey go-to.
Yeah, good fan base. No, they deserve better. They deserve absolutely better. But they ran into a tough matchup.
Dallas is Dallas. Like Jake Ottinger's going to Jake Ottinger, and we saw that.
I have them beating Seattle in 6. I think Seattle totally they struggle a little more at home, which is kind of odd, but it happens. They're a better road team, and I expect Dallas made some. Yeah, there you go. And Dallas made some
They
uncharacteristic
did.
mistakes last night, defensively. I don't think that
Nope.
happens again. I don't
I
think
don't think so
Ottinger lets
too.
in 5 again. I think they clean it up and they win it pretty handedly
Yeah,
in 6 games.
it'll
So,
be a great one.
yeah, that's how I see that one go.
But I don't know. I mean, like
That's
those are really
it.
the thoughts. And just I guess to
Yeah.
circle back very very briefly on the Leafs.
Yeah.
I mean tomorrow's the biggest game I think
Yep.
in maybe Leafs history actually. Um,
Well, every game now is
yeah,
going to be the biggest at least.
but
Let's
this is the
face it.
one where like you
Yeah.
lose, you're down 2-0, the
Yeah.
series is over. You win tomorrow
Really, eh?
and you get momentum back and confidence. But you lose tomorrow,
Yeah.
Florida's on cloud 9. We're heading back home,
Mhm.
regardless of how many Leaf fans will be there. We're heading home to play in
Yeah.
our barn, our ice, in front of more Florida fans than will
Yeah.
be there than usual. It's like you can't have that. So this is the biggest game. This will, Matthews, Marner, and Tavares and Nylander, they were silent. Nylander was horrific in game 1, but and that's uncharacteristic because he had a great year. But can the big boys show up tomorrow and do something? I think the Leafs don't need to just win like 2-1. I think tomorrow, like, they need to put
Yeah.
4 in. Like they have to really, like, they got to
Yeah.
step on the throat of the Panthers and say, hey, like, we don't give a shit what you did to Boston.
Yeah.
Like, the Stanley Cup is for us. Like, they got to show they want
Yeah.
it because game 1 they didn't. It's the biggest game I've ever watched. It's the biggest game I will ever watch as a Leaf fan because we've never been here before and you're down 1-0 in the series and you can't afford to go down 2-0. I mean, history and statistics will tell you. So for me, Nick, yeah, all the cups before when there was fucking 6 teams in black and white and fucking
Mhm.
pads were 20 pounds each. No one gives a shit
Mhm.
about that anymore. Like that hockey is like it's not even the same sport. The Leafs, this is the biggest game they will ever play, and let's see if they win tomorrow. I think they go on to win the series. I know I said 5, but bottom line, they win tomorrow, they win the series. They lose tomorrow, I don't see them coming back. I just don't like a 2-0 lead to break would be.
Mhm.
I mean, just astronomical for a team that is already frail and just coming out of that frailty.
Yeah.
But let's see if they play Leaf hockey tomorrow. Let's see if they play.
Listen,
the way they can.
I think they're capable of playing very well on the road. I think we just saw that against Tampa. They go down 0-2. I'm concerned, but I don't think I'm that concerned where I'm willing to say they're going to lose it all. But we'll see. It's a big, huge game. We'll all be tuning in. Me, you, Kyle, Joe, everybody, all Leafs Nation will be tuning in, crossing our fingers.
Will.
And hopefully they get it done. So to our audience, thank you again for tuning in for yet another episode for round 1 recap here. We'll be back next Monday. Kyle and I will be doing a live reaction of the draft lottery. So everyone can look forward to that. There'll be a YouTube video capturing the Habs fans' reaction on how that goes.
I'll be there.
And yeah,
I'll be
it's
there.
gonna be huge.
I'll be
It's gonna be
watching
huge
for sure.
So everyone can look forward to that, and of course when we recap round 2. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to serve you. Thank you again for stepping in, John Ramo, Joe. Shout out goes to them, and until next time, Rink Moose is signing off.